Would do it.
Did it do it?
I don't know.
Was that always on? No, there it is.
That's
Recording.
perfect. Thank you very much. You see, you call them a young crowd. I think of you as having certain. Weren't, by your time of birth, weren't they videotaping the birth?
Yeah, like when I came from the era when like dad showed up at birthday parties with that like giant sack over like that bag on one arm and like had that giant camera. They're like, go up to Johnny. You know, there's Johnny at putt-putt.
Exactly.
He's 2. You know.
Exactly.
And those guys would always get you at a wedding reception. One following
with a big like microphone coming out of it.
Completely interfering with all natural and normal behavior.
Exactly.
And Dad was like a real techie, you know, he went out and bought this thing in 1980 and it was like the hot, it probably cost $1,000 back then.
Now, were you the person whose father is a criminal defense attorney too, or am
No.
I confabulating?
I guess that. My stepfather is currently an attorney now. My grandfather's an attorney. They're all Florida attorneys.
I see.
They're more cerebral and academic.
So why New Orleans? Why did you pick New Orleans?
I have family there, and I went to law school at Loyola in New Orleans, and just never left. I kind of, New Orleans is a funny culture. It's kind of.
I love it.
It's kind of. It's kind of just a strange place, and I fit in because it takes all sorts of crazies, and I was able to. I met up with this guy who he was a well-known criminal defense attorney in New Orleans.
Who?
His name was Jeff Smith, and he came to this program when I was in Houston, and he was a tennis player, and I'm a tennis player. We kind of knew each other through that. He was just like, wasn't even gonna be a lawyer. I graduated, passed the bar, and I was like, I'm gonna do real estate or this and that. And he was like, just kind of tag along with me. I just started like working out of his office, and before I knew it, I had an office next door. I just kind of went from there. And now
Where do you live?
In the warehouse district. So like,
Sure.
they were in '84 for the World's Fair. They busted up all
Right.
those things and turned them into.
I helped put the aquarium together.
Really?
So.
And that was a bit. I mean, now it's not. I mean, now with the Atlanta one and stuff, it's kind of second tier. But
No,
at the
it's
time,
gay. It was something.
Yeah, it's still a real nice aquarium.
Right.
But how did you get involved
And,
with that?
well, this Audubon folks were
Sure.
the only people fully prepared for Katrina because they'd seen what happened in Miami, and they never left.
That's the guy that he ran for mayor.
But the one who's actually curator for large mammals,
Oh, really?
Dan Maloney, and Laura, who got the SPCA together, and there are death threats on her all the time because she really doesn't believe that dog fighting is appropriate.
It's disgusting.
And they're trying to kill her. I mean, literally.
It's the only state in the country that's still. I don't know.
No, they're raving.
We allow cockfighting.
Right.
But that's up now. Maybe we reevaluate.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get started. These folks are here partly to assist and create, and I'd like to kind of do this as sort of a brainstorming for you guys so that you can get some ideas of things you can do, how you can do some things, and things that you need to think about when you're preparing to work with a group of people.
I just want to question, is this only geared to working with other attorneys, or?
No, this will work with in any setting. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's attorneys, it's just as...
Palmetto bugs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an animal training behavior.
Sure. A lot of this depends upon the type of group that you're going to work with and how long you're going to be able to be with them. There's some programs that I go to and we all go to where we may have a group for a whole week. Where we stay with that group, we are sort of their leader for that week, and we'll have other faculty that kind of float in with us. And so if I know that I've got a group for a week, it's going to free me up to do some things a little bit differently than if I'm just going to be with them for a day like we are in this program here. So one thing is you want to know how long you're going to be with your group, because that will tell you some things. Two, I think it's important to know what size of a group that you're going to have. Here it can be kind of frustrating because we got 8 people in a room and we have a limited amount of time, and we have to get to all 8 people and make sure that they all have a fair shot at doing things. And 8 is a lot of people to get to. So, if you've got a group that's smaller, say 6, it's going to free you up to do some things. The kinds of things that you're going to do in a small group, like we have right here, are very different than the kinds of things that you may want to do if you're giving a lecture to a big group, like we would do in a courtroom. So all of those things come into play, and the talents that you bring to the table to teach them down here with the participants, where I can work with you to start and stop and start and stop when we need to. But you have to do it in a certain way, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes, the way you interact and you step in and you start working with the participant. Come to believe that there's 3 essential components to learning, especially in a small group. One is it has to be fun. You know, it's people, you know, you say that about children, but adults are the same way. They have to enjoy learning or they're not going to get anything much out of it. But there's a fine line between having fun and losing control of your class, right? And I've seen Josh do this several times when he'll be working with somebody on an exercise, and people will start laughing, or the person will start laughing, and you'll have to stop them pretty abruptly and say, listen, there is a method to this madness. We're here to work. I need you to work. I need you to focus. Stay with me. Stay with me. But there has to be a component to it that's fun. I think, too, is the people that you're dealing with as lawyers or in most groups are intelligent human beings, by and large. And they can smell smoke getting blown up their ass a mile away. So the message that you bring to the table has to be a solid one. Otherwise, you know, you're going to lose all credibility and they will shut you down and you're not going to have anything left to deliver to them because they're not going to want to hear from you. Perhaps the most important thing in a small group is at the end of the day, if they are firmly convinced that you can do this shit, you haven't done them any good at all. They've got to be able to believe that they can do it. And when they walk out that door, they have got to know that they can do this. So when you're choosing to do some sort of demonstration for them, you need to keep it short and in snippets, because otherwise you're going to spend your whole time doing the demo for them, and they're going to be firmly convinced that you can do it, and you're going to think that you're really cool, but you won't have done anything for them at all, right? Make sense, Steve?
Can I throw something in there? We say that, and we understand it. And I think that so much of what one does, both to succeed and to survive, has under it the low pilot light of I am who I am because I can do this. And here's the only thing I have to offer. That very often it's one of the reasons that attorneys do prefer to stay behind the desk, because it allows them to keep the sense in the room that I'm trying to inspire you, but the unsaid thing is that I am at a level that you will not be able to get to. Because if you can, I may be useless. And that's so hard.
Yeah.
And it's not mean. I mean, at its least, it's ego.
Mm-hmm.
But even at its, you know, looking at it the most empathically, it's if you can do this all on your own without me, what need does anybody have for me? So
Yeah.
it's a little harder to actually pull off the, I want you to be able to do this absolutely as if I were never here without reference to me.
Right. I think my sense is that, yeah, you're right. I'm not expecting the participant to get to the level that I can do it at, but I do expect that they all be able to do it better than when they walked in the door.
Yeah.
And that's different for each group, because depending on the dynamics and who you have in there, some of them are going to progress more rapidly than others. You'll find, though, that working with experienced lawyers can be a good bit more frustrating than working with the lawyers who have very little experience.
Sure.
Because you're trying to break habits and then create new ones, and that can be very resistant. And one of the reasons it's important, I think, for you to be down in the group, especially if it's a group of more experienced lawyers, is they have got to know that you're willing to do the same shit that you're asking them to do before they will get off their ass and break their habits. Does that kind of work for you? Mm-hmm. One of the things that people often have questions about is, how do you actually start with a group? You've got a group of lawyers that have come together in a class and they're meeting for the first time. and you're on a track, you've got an agenda that is given to you by the school or by whoever you're teaching for. You've got so many minutes to work on this, and then you're constantly moving forward, especially in a trial skills program. Day one may be, all right, brainstorming, and then you may be working on theory of defense, and then you may be working for opening statement, and blah, blah, blah. But you're on this train that has now left the station, and you've got certain expectations that you have to meet for the faculty meetings and for the dean of the school and those sorts of things. But you've got a group of people that have come together in an environment that is particularly scary. You know, they're feeling pretty vulnerable. And again, it depends on where you are. If you're working in an office where these people all know each other, you don't have the same problem than you would at some place like Macon, where these people have come from all over the country and they're putting themselves out there, and they're sitting with a group of people in a room and they're going, what the fuck is going to happen? You know? And so you sort of have to think and consider what they're bringing to the table and how they're feeling right now when you decide how it is you're going to get started. I've never found that there's a whole lot of mileage in starting out by getting to know you conversations of tell us who you are, what office that you're in, and what kind of things you do, because all you get is the same shit back. I work in office such and such, my caseload is such and such, I went to law school because such and such. And it's just very, very, very superficial, right? And so what I may do when I start out a group is, let's go ahead and let's just do it. Let's pull our chairs together and let's kind of create a circle where we're all in this thing together. Okay, so let's bring our chairs together.
Oh, the little roller chair, Rook.
It doesn't roll that well,
Very
though.
smart.
It's sort of dysfunctional. One of the square wheels.
I'm gonna have to reload my hot water.
That's fine, yeah, no problem at all. I mean, I think that really brings up a pretty good point too. You can't be so inflexible when you're working with a small group that you can't tolerate somebody saying, I need to go get coffee, or I need to go pee. I mean, I think you have to be open to that whole thing, and they're not going to miss much, and I'm not going to stop the class, or I may just take a break for everybody. But if we start, instead of going around and saying this, I'm going to give you some instructions. I'm going to say good morning. I'm going to introduce myself, Steve Lindsay. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. Just very quickly, why don't you give us your name and where you're from? Go ahead.
Seth Bloom, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Cool, Seth. Good morning.
Peter Madden, I'm from Mobile, Alabama.
Chris Adams, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Heather Williams, Tucson, Arizona.
Hey, how are you?
And you moved over.
You were out late last night, Ann.
Holy crap. We shouldn't talk about this on tape.
You've been bored in already?
Yeah.
Cool. But you were in by 12-ish. Yes.
Joshua Carton, Santa Monica.
Good morning, Josh. Is it Josh or Joshua? Do you have a preference?
I don't.
Okay. Just checking. Some people do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and of course, there are a few people who've entered the Joshi round, but that's like a whole...
Yeah, they're probably not with us
Oh, did something happen?
I want you to think for a few minutes about a person in your world, in your life, that can be alive or that can be dead, but not related to you by blood or marriage. And I want you to think who that person is for you, somebody who had a very significant impact on your life. And that if you had the opportunity to spend an evening and eat dinner with them, that's the person you'd pick out of all the persons out there that you know. Think about that for a second.
Can you say that again?
Yes.
And this could be a reality?
Yeah.
Say that again?
Now, what I try to do is I make it just a little bit convoluted. And the reason I make it a little bit convoluted is I'll give you the general proposition of not married and not related by blood or marriage. Now, I can do related by blood or marriage, and I can explain to you why I might want to do that in a minute. But you get a series of instructions that are a little bit mixed up. But it's not overly long, it's just sort of that long. And now what I'm going to do is we go around, I'm going to pay attention as the instructor to who you choose, why you choose them, and whether you actually heard the instruction. And there's a series of things that I'm going to do for a variety of purposes. Right now, I'm looking at that because I'm trying to figure out as quickly as I can how you best learn. I know that people either learn orally or visually or tactily. In general, that's the way they learn. And so in order for me to work with you in the best way that I possibly can, I need to start to figure out how you best learn. Because if I sit back and I tell you something, an exercise that I need you to do, and you're not pulling it off, I need to be able to find creative ways to work with you in front of another group of people so that you get it and they get it too. Not only do you get the concept, but they learn something from the way you and I are working with each other when you're on your feet and we're up doing an exercise. And so that helps me when, for example, if you gave me, the person I'd like to be with is my father, right? And I wouldn't call you down on the rug. I wouldn't say you've done it wrong. You didn't listen to the instructions. But I make a mental note that he didn't pick up on that. And I'm watching as we move through different exercises to see whether he's picking up on things that I'm saying, or whether he's picking up better on things that I'm doing, or whether he's somebody that actually has to do it themselves in order to really get it. And it's all really sort of structured around the way this college is, because the college is based upon, right, you get a lecture, right? You go out into your room and you do it, which is a tactile sort of operation. Then you come back and you see a faculty member perform it, which becomes the visual. And that's why it's set up this way, is that it maximizes the number of people that we can teach things to. And it's also repetitive learning. You know, when you hear something and then you do something and then you see something, it has a tendency to sink in. All right, so having thought about that a little bit, why don't you start and share with us the person that you would choose to spend an evening with and have dinner?
It would probably be Jeff, who's in New Orleans with me, who basically trained me as much as I'm trained as an attorney, and we get along great. And it's just, you know, we have a lot of common elements as far as, you know, around work, talk, work, social stuff, you know, what's going on locally, things like that. So that's probably who, you know, I would pick. He had a huge impact in my life as far as, you know, career and a lot of things. You know.
We say huge impact. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Can you tell us a little bit more about the things that he's done that has been meaningful to you?
Well, I mean, you know, he really, you know, he basically, you know, I didn't know the first thing about how to be an attorney from law school. And I don't want to make this just this is with my boss, because it really wasn't a relationship like that. But you know, I think he equipped me socially to interact with people, judges, other people in society. Brought me into certain social clubs and so forth to kind of network me, and you know, just, you know, taught me how to do that. And in fact, he came on the scene right as my father had died, so he was kind of I was very susceptible to kind of looking for. He's kind of a father figure in some way, in many ways. So that's kind of how it was very powerful at the time. And I literally met him 6 weeks after my dad died. So that was cosmic or something like that. So.
Well, if you pull back the law part of it,
Okay.
and
that's a small part of our relationship.
right, and you take that off the table for a second. What would you say the most important lesson is that he has given you since you've known him?
You know, I'm someone that's pretty anxious. I can be really wound up, and he's like Mr. Chill. So maybe something was just to be like, Seth, calm down. Let's look at the whole picture here. And let's work through the problem. And that's not, I'm not talking about legal stuff. I'm talking about life stuff. So I would say, you know, the kind of the greatest lesson would be, you know, just going to step back from, you know, instead of me getting wound up and not being able to focus on what I need to do, is just going to take a deep breath, step back, and you know, make a better decision about the situation.
I want you to think for a second and you know, go with me on this. If you had the chance, and perhaps you have, I mean, different people have different beliefs about afterlife and things like that, but if you had a chance to talk with your father and explain to your father why this person who came into your life shortly after his death became that important to you, that significant to you, what would that conversation be?
With my father?
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, it would be very positive. I think, you know, he would be happy.
Try doing it for me. Pretend like he is here and just sort of ignore us, if you will. Tune us out. You're just having a conversation with your father, and tell him about this person and why he's important to you.
Dad's, you know, this guy's really taken over from a lot of the roles you played in my life as far as being a soundboard for a lot of my ideas and things that I do. And he's not, would never replace you anyway, but certainly he's supplemented some of me. Probably supplemented.
Probably would, right?
He's he's been a good person to listen to go to ball games with, play sports with, like we used to do, and it's been a real comfort blanket since I'm no longer able to interact with you anymore.
If you weren't with us anymore, if you had passed, and your friend was speaking on your behalf at your wake, what is it you hope that he would say about you?
I would hope that he would say that I was a good person, but a tough person, and that I certainly am polarizing to some extent, where there's a lot of people that love me, and there's some people that think, I'm cocky or this and that. But that ultimately I was someone that really went out there, I had a really good entrepreneurial drive, and that, that I was involved in many things across the board, religiously, socially, and work-related, and I was fairly well-rounded, and that I was, a go-getter, and all, and a good guy. I wasn't Mother Teresa, but at the same time, I thought I left the path that people would certainly remember me, and for different things I did and said. So it's a little bit.
Now, let's talk for a second about what's happening here. And I would spend time and we would go around and everybody would do this. And it takes a little bit of time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a bonding exercise, that these people, when they've come through this experience, are far more attached by the time you get through this than they are if you do the traditional exercises of tell us who you are, getting to know you kind of thing. But it also has some pretty interesting spin out that comes from this whole exercise as well. One thing you got to remember is if you do this, you've got to be ready to pony up too. Because when you get around and they get to you and you try to move on without saying anything at all, by that point they're going to say, we want to hear from you too. Who would you pick? Who would you spend your evening with? And so you've got to be able to put out on the table what you're asking them to put out on the table.
Yeah, I was thinking about you because we really haven't had any interaction.
Right.
So we got on
Right, exactly. So I would need to do it. Now, I wasn't pushing you quite as hard as I could, and it's a little difficult when you're doing this and the camera's running, because what I'm trying to do... Yeah, you'd forgotten. I think you may have forgotten outwardly, but inwardly you may well have known a little bit that it was there.
Are you my shrink? It's my subconscious again?
Yeah, you got it. So part of the exercise is, again, me trying to figure out a little bit about how you learn, me trying to figure out who you pick and why you pick. That helps me understand something about you. But you're giving experiences to these other people that are going to make them remember you and think about you in a different way than, oh, he's just a lawyer from New Orleans who's got 45 cases or 450 cases or what have you. This is also, without them knowing this, an introduction to jury selection, because I'm sitting here and I'm actually peeling back the layers of the onion and going a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper with each person that I'm dealing with without telling them that this is jury selection. Now when we get to jury selection, they'll get an aha moment. They'll go, oh, okay, and they'll probably make the connection. If they don't, I can always remind them. If we go back to the first day, do you remember how it was we were doing that exercise? Right? Does that make sense? And so it really is peeling back. And it's also letting me try to find your emotional center point on certain things. And I'm going to ask certain questions, and I'm going to push you towards an emotional level, which is kindly psychodrama, but I'm not going to take it over the top. When I feel like I'm getting close enough that I can start to feel the emotion in your voice, or I can start to feel the quiver in your voice about something, I'm going to very calmly listen. I'm going to say, stay with you for a second, and thank you for being open and honest and sharing, and move on and talk with somebody else. But I'm going to let each one of them become vulnerable in the group, because it will then make it much easier for me to be able to get you to do exercises with this group that you may think are, silly, or you may think are threatening to you in some way, but it allows you to open up and get to a level where, you've been touched, right?
Sure.
Normally when you come through this experience and after you talk, it's really important to take a break because people sort of get emotionally exhausted when you do things like this. And so we usually will take a break. And either before we take the break or after we take the break, I'm going to do an exercise along these lines. I want you guys to turn knee to knee, if you would, and you guys turn knee to knee. And actually, I think what I want to do is I want you two to switch, and I want you to come partner with this person, and if you'll partner with Chris for me, okay? Now, during this, there are certain rules. There are certain rules I want you to follow in this exercise. One is, throughout the exercise, you have to hold the person's hands across from you in your hands. Two, you must maintain eye contact. If you see your partner look away, glance away, even for a second, squeeze their hands to let them know that they're breaking the rules. Okay? Now, here's this. This is called make up a story. And the way it works is this. I'm going to give you a genre, a category, for the story that the two of you are going to create between you. One of you will start. For example, you may start and say, once upon a time there was an alligator. You'll stop the phrase. The other person will pick up the story and say, who lived on the banks of a muddy river. And you'll stop and you'll pass this story back and forth, a phrase at a time, within the genre that I give you. Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Your genre is murder mystery. Go.
It was a dark and stormy night.
There was a man dressed in black.
A man dressed in black standing in a house beside the tent.
The stairs creaked under his footfall.
And then asleep on the stairs beneath the rose
The night glistened in the moonlight.
My 8-inch grave.
The carvings.
He pulled the knife out of his lead holster. Stopped and had it. And the bar, so slowly, was bleeding.
Okay, now I want you to freeze a second, and I'm going to give you a new genre. And I'm going to change one rule. The rule is this time you can only do this one word at a time. The phrase is gone, one word at a time. I'm going to give you a new genre. Take the person's hands, eye contact. Ready? Sex novel. Go.
G-string. Heated. Moonlight.
Come on, Ward, keep your eyes on me. Don't glance away.
Music. Soaked. Chaperons. Twisted. Rising. Dead. Breathing together. Yeah.
Okay, relax. Shake it off a little bit.
I need a cigarette.
shower?
Yeah.
I'm calling Josh again.
Now, I think what you get partly from this is that this sort of does break the ice a good bit, and it's fun. I mean, it really is. It's a very interesting exercise for a variety of reasons. So I like to use it because it does provide that fun aspect that you talk about, and people enjoy this exercise. But really what I'm asking you to do here is experience something. Which of these two were more difficult for you? The phrase or the word?
The word.
Okay, how about you?
Probably the word.
Anybody else think word? Yeah? Phrase? Some people think phrase was more difficult. You know, there's no right answer or wrong answer to whether it's the phrase or the word that's more difficult. But did you find yourself get to the point where the other person said something and you said to yourself, where do I go now? You know, you have that sort of butt pucker moment, as I call it, where you go, I don't know what to do. But you know what? It did come to you, didn't it? Right? And the reason I want you to experience that, what I call the edge of the cliff, is because when you do this thing called litigation right, and you're in the courtroom, and either you're asking the jurors questions during jury selection, or you're doing your opening statement, or you're doing your cross-examination, you're going to have those moments where you say to yourself, fuck, where do I go now? You'll be at the edge of the cliff. But just as with this exercise, if you follow through with what we're going to work on today and tomorrow and the next day, the answer's going to come to you just as easily as it did in this. So don't fear the edge of the cliff. Understand what it is.
There's some awareness, too, I think, of a moment when together, I thought this was an easy, we were going word by word, and I thought, oh, this, and then my partner looked bewildered, and I thought, wait. But I mean, no, it was just really just about syntax at that moment, and I thought the word I had given easily set up something, and I saw that somebody who I'm enjoying sharing with is not on the same plate I am. I don't even mean the topic, I'm just talking about the syntax of a sentence. And a part of me wanted to go, well, see, this is, you can go, but the fact that it wasn't immediately understood.
I felt that moment, yeah.
And it put me, I mean, as a trainer, at an interesting place, which was, wait, I want to help. Well, first of all, right now it puts me in an interesting place because I don't want to be training, I want to be trained.
Right.
But also, I realized this is obvious to me that this isn't a big deal, but here this is a stumbling place for you. And I've come up against that in my work all the time, and certainly we come up against it in voir dire, in directs,
Sure.
in all the time.
I think it's a great exercise to use for cross-examination, for example, because this is a situation where you're really trying hard to control where the other person goes. You know the story in your head.
Right.
You don't know the story in their head. And you're trying to get them to go where you want them to go, but they may not accept your word. They may not give you the word that you're looking for, but you may get something pretty close to it, and you can together move forward in the direction that you want to go.
And they're not, go ahead.
No, it was a logistic question. In that exercise, can you use like conjunctions just to keep the story flowing? Or is it like supposed to be just like word to word?
Word to word to word to word to word,
Right.
So-
right? That's why you have to let this thing, sort of simmer a little bit. You can't just let them go for 30 seconds, or they'll get no place in this exercise.
Right.
You've got to let it go for 3 or 4 minutes, and that also gives you, as the instructor, an opportunity to breathe just a little bit when they do this, If you're right here in the middle of the whole thing and you don't have any help, it gets pretty exhausting after a while. So some of these exercises give me an opportunity to just sort of go, okay, what am I going to do next,
So the words should just be following each other, but they don't have to really be.
Well, they'll follow each other, but they don't have to be, you're going to run into situations where she's going to say, and his, and you'll say, here, and she'll go, was, and you'll go, flowing,
Okay.
she'll go, down, and,
You can do
Right.
that.
yeah,
And one of us is doing, come on!
yeah, let's move this thing forward. So that's important. A couple things are, be careful in the way you pair people up. If you pair them up wrong, and I don't know that there's a right way and a wrong way, depending on how you pair them up, they will either get something out of this or they won't get as much out of it. For example, my experience has been when you put people together of the same sex, it is a very different dynamic than if you put the people together who are of different sexes. And one reason is because the topic that you pick is sex novel. And I picked sex novel because they're going to be dealing with topics as lawyers that are uncomfortable for them. And you put a group of people together, especially of the opposite sex, and you say sex novel, and it gets kind of interesting to watch. If you watch their body language, for example, what they'll do, whether they sit back or whether they sit up. And if you watch when 2 guys do this, the way the direction of their story goes is going to be a little different than the way your story goes, just by virtue of who they are as people and what sex they are. So that's kind of an interesting thing to watch, and make sure you pair people. I like to pair them so that it appears anyway, superficially, that it's a bit uncomfortable for them, right? But it is a fun exercise. Now, the point that I bring around using this is, You know, there really are two things that make good lawyers really good lawyers. You have to watch and you have to listen. You can't play this game. If you don't pay attention to what's happening in the courtroom with your jurors or with your witness or whoever it is that you're dealing with, you can't play. And if you don't listen to what they say.
I think it's the listening is such a difficult skill. I mean, it really is a complete, I've read a couple books on listening because I know I'm not a great listener. But like, I think someone mentioned it in one of the lectures about like doing cross-exam or something. You get so into your questions and then you're not even listening to what they're answering. You know, you're not even interacting, responding to,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this may be the first exercise that we do when we come back after taking a break, or it may be the last exercise we do before we break, because I either want them to go out feeling good or come back and feel good as soon as they get back, once they've had a breather. This is an exercise that's interesting I came up with when I really got tired at night of trying to keep my eyes open and reading books to my children, or in the car going someplace of, are we there yet, are we there yet? So this was a little thing that I created for the kids, where we would either at night cut the lights out completely and lay there in the bed and make up a story. Or we'd do it in the car just so I didn't have to hear, are we there yet? And it was amazing to watch the creativity of the kids. And so it was out of that I started using this little exercise in these groups. And it's a fun exercise, and there really is some method to the madness. Are there other things you think of that the exercise could be used for, and how this can juncture into some things?
This
This
creating
particular-
the story,
creating
not
the story.
other opening exercises.
While you're thinking about that, I think it's important to remember this. You learn these techniques that you teach, right? Like this exercise or that exercise. You've got to see them as being tools on your tool belt. You can't go into a room and say, I'm going to use an exercise. As much as you go into a room and try to figure out what the room needs, and then you pull it off of your tool belt. It's almost like using analogy in an opening statement or a closing argument. The danger of it is you pick the shit that you like in your life, and then you try to force it into your opening statement. And it's painful to watch a lot of times because it just doesn't work. And if you go into a room saying, I'm going to use this technique and this technique and this technique, without knowing whether they really need it, it's going to be just as uncomfortable at times. Now, you can do some basic structure, like this basic exercise you're going to use, and you may know that you're going to want to use it at a certain time, but when you're working with individuals, don't bring to the table something you want to use. Pull off your belt what it is you figured out you need to use in order to get them moving forward. All right?
Places that this exercise, and I don't know, see that this is precisely what you meant, is where the group will then start to build a story.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can come out of nowhere.
Right.
Sometimes you'll write a word, have everybody write a word on a piece of paper and throw it into a hat, and then everybody gets a word. So the delight of stories that don't move forward just based on recounting the easy or the expected will do.
It's a good point.
You can move out of there. I mean, in terms of building stories, there's a Spoon River anthology thing, that Don will do. Everybody knows this, where we'll take it to, I mean, depending if we're working on openings or something, the scene in the restaurant in San Antonio, so let's say we're doing that, so that you would now be Mario, you would be the keys on the table, you would be Giant, you would be Ms. Judy, you would be Judy's
greed, you could be Judy's lust, you could be the wine glass, you could be the urinal in the men's room, and that everybody would start to tell the story moving forward, coming up, coming up, coming up. I mean, this thing of how to share the building of a story in different points of view. But a part of me feels in terms of the stuff that you're working on, there's better things.
Right.
Forcing it into story building
Right.
here.
Right. Okay. Now, at this juncture, we probably, having gone through this exercise, I may have used about an hour of time. Yeah, I can take more, I can take less. Again, it depends. Am I going to be with this group for the whole week? Because if I am, I know where my group is, I know where they're going, and I know how to get them there. If I've only got them for a day and somebody else is coming in, I've got to be more mindful of how I'm spending my time because I know I've got to give them to somebody else. But at this point, what I'm going to do is, what I want each of you to do now is I want you to go out into the hallway and walk. You're going to have 5 minutes to do this. When you go out the door, you may not speak to anyone, even if you're spoken to. You may not take any paper, you may not take any notes, no pencil. I just want you to go out into this building and find something for me that fascinates you, some object in this building that you find interesting. I want you to touch it, I want you to feel its texture, and when you come back, I want you to share with us the story of the person that created that thing. Okay? So let's take 5 minutes and let's go do that, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up where we left off.
Person, I'm a little confused. Or should I?
Again, there's a real issue here about if they ask you to repeat the instructions, it tells you something. Do you repeat the instructions? Because there may be other people that didn't quite get it either, and if you give them a second bite at the apple, you may not figure out what they're struggling with either. But you try to do it as slowly as you can, right? And you try to say, you go out, I want you to find something that fascinates you or interests you. Touch it, feel its texture, look at it, see how it's structured. When you come back to the room, I'm going to ask you to share with me the story of the person that made that thing. Okay? So go take 5 minutes, find what it is that intrigues you, and come back. Remember, no speaking, you may have spoken to.
I've also heard, well, actually, I don't know that it's heard, it's more used. Because I told you I do this at the Army JAG school.
Right.
But because they have, maybe it's because I misheard it, maybe it's because I misremembered it. The front part is the same, but at the end it's tell us the story of how it got here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's how I heard it first from you, or that's what it became.
I've done it both ways, and I think it just depends on what my interest level is in a particular day, because each one can get you going in a little bit different direction. So I heard that you had a wonderful evening last night.
Is this off?
No.
Oh, I can do that later. It was a wonderful evening. Although it turns out,
Yeah, that's
I took the magic. I do those immune defense, those little packets with the vitamin booster in them.
Really?
They do the job. I mean, I wasn't particularly hungover this morning, but I had one anyway. They really make you feel better. Just enough.
We used to, I think, do vitamin
no, I'm
B12.
sorry to like break in. How old are you?
29.
No, that's why it's working out. Okay, it is, I don't care what you take, it's just a function.
When you're 30, it just doesn't work anymore.
Oh!
You know, I remember a few years back, David Lewis, who's a wonderful lawyer and a faculty member here, saying he was hungover. And his answer to hangovers are Alka-Seltzer, right? And he said, I saw him, I said, did you take your Alka-Seltzer? And he said, no, I couldn't handle the noise.
You know what works really well too is BC to Goody's headache powder, because you hit it on the back of your throat, and it's got caffeine and a ton of aspirin in it, and it's a powder, so it hits you in 10 minutes.
I was thinking snorting and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Do a line of BC powders.
right. It's probably that.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. They'll be back in here in just a second. Here they come. And what I'm going to, why don't you come and let's work together. So if you'll hop up with me. What I want you to do now is let's assume that this is your jury. And I want you to tell them the story of whatever it was that you found, the person who put it there, okay?
Just make sure it's on, that's all. When you look in the viewfinder. Okay, good.
Okay, go ahead.
I found an object. The assignment was to look for an object. And I noticed that first thing, the hardware on the doors didn't fall away out here. And I looked at the doorknobs and the lever type door handles. And I thought about the person who invented and designed lever type door. And that person saw a need for something other than the standard round doorknob. It was a need, the function of the doorknob is as a lever to move a small wedge which closes the door, which secures the door in the frame. But there's no need for an entire round object on the outside of the door. All you need is a lever to move that wedge half an inch. And the designer of the lever type doorknob had a very elegant design which stripped it down to the function that would maximize its ability to perform the function.
Okay, now I want you just to freeze a second. You're doing fine. You're absolutely doing fine. All right. Now, I want to help you out here just a second because there's a couple things that you can do that can make you much more believable and interesting as the teller of this story. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that what you're doing is bad. I'm trying to do this like Emerald. You know who Emerald is?
Yeah.
Crank it up a notch, right? Let's turn it up a notch.
Yeah.
Let's make it better.
That's what we're doing.
All right? And improve. One of the things that we know, and you know, about life is that we're in a society where if you don't look people in the eye, you can't look people in the eye, you're not worthy of belief. Right? Right. And I've noticed it from time to time when you're telling this story, you'll glance away and you'll look over here, or you'll look up here where I think you're probably trying to figure out where you're going to go. Right?
Yeah.
Now, you know that's what you're doing. First of all, the answer's not out there, and it's not out there. The answer's in your heart, and it's between your ears and your head.
Okay.
But when you do that, they're seeing something else. You're losing them. It gives them an opportunity to start thinking about everything else. And we know this, if you're not interested and you don't hold their interest, they're going to click that mute button. And they're going to shut you off. Now they'll look at you and they'll nod their heads. But he's going to be thinking about, you know what, I've just got to pick up some groceries at the grocery store. And he's going to be thinking about, you know, I've got some bills I've got to pay. And they're going to sit there and they're going to do that. And you're going to, you know, they're going to look the part, but they're not really going to be listening to you. So what I want you to do is work on eye contact for me. Okay?
Steve, can I get you to freeze right where you are?
Yeah.
Do you see how Steve is working here and how he's come in a non-threatening way and they're coaching and they're really in this thing together? Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's important that I be able to get right here with you so that you feel it's safe. The first thing I noticed about you is that this is a pretty threatening exercise to you. You're the first person up out of this whole group. You're in front of this group. The camera's rolling. I'm right here, and you're a little anxious about this, right? And it's always going to be that way, even if you're second or you're third. Public speaking is one of the greatest fears that we have out here, and most people do, even though we've chosen to be litigators. You know, we're all still scared about this. So I'm going to be right here with you to let you know that it's safe. I like to make contact. I like to put my hand on the person's shoulder, right? Now, I've been to training programs, I've done this training where people have said, oh, that's sexual harassment waiting to happen, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Fuck them. I'm sorry, but If somebody's going to dine me out for sexual harassment because I put my hand on their shoulder, there's a problem with them and not a problem with me. This is an important technique because I need you to know that you're safe.
Right.
And that I believe in you. All right, and so I'm right here doing that, and I'm making a little bit of contact. Whether I stay or not, I can tell from you whether you're comfortable with it almost immediately. If I'm in too far in your space and you back up a little bit, I'm going to ease back just a little bit. I'm going to give you that comfort zone. But I will know from being close to you what you can handle and what you can't handle pretty quick. So what I want you to do now is as you take this story forward, two things. One is always make eye contact. Please don't look away. Now, I'm not saying stick with one person the whole time, but meaningful eye contact. Work her eye. And move to his eye. But stay with them and have eye contact. There's two things that are going to happen when you have eye contact. One is you're going to be able to look into their soul. And you're going to be able to see what touches them and moves them. More importantly, you're letting them look into yours. Because they've got to be able to trust you and believe in you before they'll vote for your client. Right? Now, the other thing I want you to do is instead of having your shoulders back, which is distancing you from them and giving them permission to have a wall between you, can you lean into them just a little bit? You're doing a good job with your hands, okay? Just sort of lean in and make eye contact. And I want you to pick it up where you left it off, working their eyes. It's not a pinball machine. You're not going ding, 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 ding. Meaningful eye contact. You know what I'm saying? Give it a try. Come on, you'll be fine.
The lever type doorknob fits a particular need and function. The person who designed that had either the idea or the assignment to produce that type of thing. And I was thinking about the person who had the idea and imagining that was the person who actually did the design, the drafting, the drawing, and was interested in the precision of the internal mechanism of that device, and then the outward elegance of it. So there's a sculptural, artistic component to it, and then there's a very tight, precise, mechanical component which is hidden from them, is not visible to the public, not visible to the user, yet it looks, and so from the outside, it's a simple, elegant.
You're starting to lean back a little bit because you're sort of struggling with where you want to go. But I want to know, is he doing a better job of making eye contact now?
Having a-
Right. And the what's always thrilling for me is that the physical change in you as you become more committed to engaging us has side effects. What you're saying is kind of thrilling me a little bit. The genius of what you're talking about seems so much more important. And I suddenly found your voice
Those director's chairs.
burbling and charming in a way that I hadn't before. And your whole body freed up. Both hands came out instead of just so those three things. The rest of the body joined your more concerted eye work. What you were saying mattered more to me. And you as a human, in the sound of your voice, became more appealing.
Make sense to you?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to work on.
Well, good, good. You're actually doing much better. Now, what I want to do now is take it up even another notch. Do you know these people's names?
And?
Yeah.
Good.
Chris.
And
Second.
Seth. Okay. All right. This time, as we're moving forward, again, I want you to do the eye contact. But when you make eye contact with him and you're telling your story, say his name out loud and then tell your story. If you're going to her, say her name out loud and continue your story and use their first names and see what happens, okay? Give it a try. Does it make sense to you? what I'm asking you to do?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Can we, I'm sorry, but now why that time did you clarify that the instruction was apprehended and understood? How is that instruction different to you quantitatively than the other instructions you've given?
Because in this setting, I don't want to have to interrupt him again. He's making some progress, and if he starts into it and hasn't understood the instructions, I'm in a bad position of having to stop him
Now you
again
have to do it again.
and correct it and
Right.
start him over again when he's in a flow. And I really want to keep him moving forward. The more times I have to interrupt him, the more I lose a moment potentially. So I want to make sure that he understands it and he feels comfortable with it. He is probably, because I am the instructor, if I don't give him a clear instruction and I say, got it, he may say yes just because he's afraid to tell me no. And then he's going to start in and he's going to feel bad when he doesn't get it. So I want to make sure that he understands the instruction. That's why I do it. Do you have to do it? No, but that's why I do it that way. Okay?
All right. Seth, I have a chance.
Okay, and when you're talking to Seth, let's do this too. Let's take a little step towards Seth, since you're going to make eye contact with him. All right, lean in and say Seth and pick up your story.
Okay. Seth, this is, it's real important to me that the kind of two sides of the lever doorknob. And I was, began to talk about the internal precision and the external simplicity and elegance. And the person who designed that had a real, I think, complicated, an ability to understand the complex, all those inner workings, and then an exterior which appeared to be very simple.
All right, now you're at a good point. You've made it simple. Now, find somebody else. You're at a juncture. It's a transition here. Find somebody else, say their name, get their eyes, and move it forward.
Okay. And I think that the doorknob itself reflects the personality of the designer. And what you see is not necessarily what there is behind the doorknob. And that's why that fascinates me so much, why the doorknob can be interesting. Chris, I don't know if you know any designers, but people who design objects, who design hardware, buildings or plumbing or anything, spend a lot of time, hours and hours doing sketches and drafts, and the reams and reams of paper. And then,
Okay, great.
okay.
How's this feeling?
It feels better. It's much
Okay,
better.
do you have any idea why?
Because I'm making that connection.
All right, let's find out whether they're making that connection. Okay? Talk to them.
I mean, I'm really interested, and I want to go just look at that doorknob now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Peter.
Peter obviously has some background knowledge in, working or something like technical work, stuff like that, and he obviously has a great deal of knowledge, but I'm really fascinated to see why that particular type of knob or whatever you're talking about is used. It's obviously there's some ingenuity and some creativity put behind it, so I'm interested.
You know, when you use my name, Peter, and talk directly to me, it becomes a transaction that I have responsibility for. I mean, I found myself when you were on your first go-around, I was like, yeah, maybe Chris can hook me up with some aspirin. I was just kind of thinking about other stuff, right? But then when you were using my name, it's like, then I felt like I had the duty to be in that story with you. And I think, I'm not sure, but I kind of feel like I was nodding and just, working with you in that, not meaning to, but it was because then it became something that I had ownership in too. And I thought that was a really interesting change.
Became a joint venture, if you will.
I'm curious on a freeze frame part, why add the use of the name? And I had a storyteller one time tell us that when you introduce yourself, say, I am Chris Adams. And I thought, that's stupid. They could take my name, rename. My identity is not in my name. But he said, most people's is. Like, whatever. But it doesn't, it seems stiff because I was like, he's going to have to search for names and it's going to fuck the story up.
Well, and you've got to watch carefully because depending on the number of people that you have, and it works really well when they have name tags on, because then it doesn't create, there's some people that just can't remember names, right? And it becomes sort of an intimidating experience, so you have to be careful about that. But I like them to use the name when I need them to create a bond with people that they haven't quite gotten yet. And it does. It makes it more personal, and it lets them feel, that they can communicate one-on-one with people. The magic then is then backing them out of that technique and showing them that they can do it without saying the name. They can say the name quietly to themselves or in their head. Joshua takes this even a step further where he will actually have you take the person's hand and say their name and move and make a connection. And the hand is kind of interesting because when you take the hand, it actually makes you lean in some. And when you lean in, you're more believable, you're more interesting, you're more engaging, and it makes you do that and helps you get to that point. So what are you thinking at this point?
The purpose of saying the name, from my point of view, if you called Anne Child, or you called her Wendy, or you called her Sabrina, she would have the same results in response, because what it does is it brings to the flow of the language the identification of who you're talking to. We're able to feel it physically, but we separate the narrative ribbon. And we keep letting language pour out, and it's still a little disconnected from our creature awareness of the other. The minute, Tompkins, I'm calling you by name, that's not your name, but I come forward to you and my address to you becomes even more particularized. So Marcus, what we're doing, and so I think of it as it infects the flow of speech in a positive way. I can't find the right verb. I've been using infect, and that's not right. But
well, the point is, I mean, in this exercise, if you don't want to use names, you could call them a color. For example, violet and blue, or whatever it is, as long as you're attributing a name to it, it changes the dynamic of this thing amazingly.
Exactly. Right.
And you'll even see, if you'll watch your tag, you'll see that the word choice that you start to use as you tell this story changes.
Right.
Becomes richer and more colorful in how you choose to describe the story.
What about the opposite side of the coin? I know some of the, I mean, this is obviously to take us to, some of this is for the court and things like that, and I know Josh made some points about this, and I kind of disagreed, or at least had a different opinion, that sometimes when you're, at least I do this, is that when someone like in a group, zooms in on me and is looking at me and giving this lecture, I'm like, why the fuck is he looking at me? You know what I mean? Or says my name and tightens up. Or on that person on the jury, when you're really leaning in and you want to make contact with them, they might be like, why is he, some people get uncomfortable. I do.
Well, I think that there's messages that you get from people, and you'll know, and I know which jurors, when I get to my closing argument, I know which jurors are just not going my way. I mean, I can tell pretty much, and I don't spend that much time
I
with
didn't go
them.
your way, just uncomfortable with the attention you're giving them specifically.
I just don't have a problem with it. And I really think that if you do it evenly and you spend time with everybody and don't just focus on one, that everybody's going to feel treated evenly and everybody's going to feel comfortable with it.
I think the discomfort that you're talking about is when someone feels that they are being used by you to your end and are being singled out. If what they're getting from you is that you're just making yourself available to them, then the minute they signal to you, I don't want that, you go somewhere else.
Sure.
So that's why I sometimes think of eye contact not as anything I'm doing, but as something I'm letting the juror know I'm available for if they want it. And then the minute they're saying no, or leave me alone, I go next door. And then we make a party happen there. And then their eyes start coming to you a little bit because they want in. And then you flick your eyes over for a second, and in that instant say, the door's open, we've got your glass board, we have food for you, come in when you want, as opposed to, gotcha, see?
There is that, I think the eye contact stuff has a great teaching potential as jurors too, because what happens is we end up rooting and then we're waiting for our turn and we're trying to seduce the teller into like, join with us now, join with us now, my turn, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play.
Right, call on me, Mrs. Marquardt.
And you really understand that if, then when you're on the other side and you're the one speaking with the 12 individuals, that same sort of openness on your part that you take here, trying to be the one who draws it, if you're there and willing to get it, people are going to want it. People are going to want that connection.
I think that that's true. So, good work, huh?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Come play. Come play. Thinking about the things that we did and we talked about and building on those, I want you to make good eye contact, okay? I want you to lean in and I want you to tell us the story of the object that you found, okay? Go.
Okay. Peter, the day after Emmeline Darwin found out that Bob Randall was having an affair with Ramona Peters, she went to paint her own pottery. And Joshua, she loves paint your own pottery because she has a punch card, and it's called the Pottery Artist Card. And what Bob Randall said to her when she found out about this the day before was, well, you know, Emmeline, you've just kind of let yourself go. And maybe that's true, Seth. Maybe she doesn't get out and go to the gym as much as she used to, but she has had 4 children with this man, and that kind of takes its toll, Peter. But in her body is still that artist that she thought that maybe she would be when she did the 2 years at Alamance Junior College before she met Bob Randall. And so she went to paint her own pottery, and she thought, you know, I need to do a little something for me. A little something that will bring beauty back into this house that's not so beautiful anymore. Because once Bob Randall told her that he had been seeing Ramona, all the stuff that she had surrounded herself with in her kitchen, that little kitchen witch and those ducks with the blue bows around their necks that she had stenciled on top of the kitchen wall, suddenly they all didn't seem beautiful anymore. They just seemed like a signature. So she stood there at Paint Your Own Pottery, and she was looking at the racks of the bisqueware that you can pick out to paint.
Okay, let's freeze just a second. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm not sure what she's talking about, but I think she's doing a great job. I'm not sure what the object is.
Okay, so
I lost her.
Go
She
ahead.
was scintillating. I mean, it was very exciting, but it was just I don't know. I lost what the object was.
Okay, so at least for you, and we'll talk to the other folks, if she changed the structure of this, the organization of where she put things in this story, it might help you understand a little bit more about what the story was about. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the object is.
Right. Yeah, and one thing we're going to work on as the week goes by is that we know that chronology is an easy way to remember things, but it's also a pretty boring way to tell a story. Right? Flash forward and flash back is an amazing way to do it. And she can jump around and she can move around. So one thing we may want to work on is how this story is structured to make it more interesting, right? We know that we want the first thing in our story, the first thing out of our mouth to be interesting. Do you remember what the first thing was that she said? What was it?
I think I remember that when, and I didn't catch, I couldn't say the name, but I do remember that Bob is having the affair with Mona. So when the heroine finds out or found out that Bob Randall was having an affair, sleeping with Mona something, the heroine takes herself to paint your own pottery. That's right.
So it really is, if you think about it, the opening little segment right there is something that is sort of titillating. Right? I mean, it's, you know, I want to know more about this affair. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, anything right there up front like that is going to capture some audience. Somebody once said it to me this way: you need to start with something like, what in the world was a 700-pound woman doing on an 80-foot ladder? Now, you know what? I don't know about you. I want to know the answer to that, right? And that's kind of what that opening part wants to do. You want to just grab them up and make them go, okay, I want to know the answer to that. I want to know where this story is going to go. Talk to her a little bit about her body language and her approach and her eye contact. How's she doing on that? What do you think?
Real good.
Mhm.
And coming closer.
Yeah,
You know, I stayed where, that's even closer.
But you know what? You can come close like she does too. And as we work through the week, we're going to get you a little bit more comfortable about moving in just a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
Did you see her doing the things that you were working on and you were improving on? And do you see from what she's doing ways that you can do it even better than what you were doing?
Oh, yeah.
Cool,
Of course.
cool, right? You say, go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at this as the trainer, and I don't want to be. I want to be looking at it so I can keep learning from you. And a part of me knows the adjustment I would want her to make at this
Mhm.
point, so.
So, and there's all sorts of different things that we can do depending on what her strengths are and her weaknesses are. But we're always going to be very positive about it. We're always going to be moving her forward. You know, in my mind, she may only be making this much progress. In her mind, she's feeling like she's making a lot of progress. She's got to feel positive. She's got to feel safe. She's got to feel like what she's doing is actually having an impact on the way she's going to do things. All right? So, for the sake of time, I'm going to say thank you so much. Good job. All right? Everybody's got to be in this together. And Seth, why don't you come up and play for just a minute? All right? Again, I want you to build on the kinds of things you've seen us working on. That's a good eye contact, good body contact. At this point, I don't need you to say their name. I just want you to say it in your head if you want to, but make that good contact and move from person to person. Let's see how you tell this story.
I was walking around the hallways, and I went downstairs, and I was going to freshen my tea, and suddenly I was walking into the lobby, this beautiful law school, and I noticed that the paintings on the wall were a little drab of all these very stern-looking white men and law professors, and then suddenly in the corner, I noticed this very interesting Chinese or some sort of Asian vase or urn of some sort. So I came in and I really looked closely at that urn, and I was noticing that the urn had just beautiful intricacies to it. It was really just a very foreign piece, and a different piece, and a piece that I was saying, why is this piece? Someone must have came in here and said, look at all this drab art, look at all this, stoic pieces.
Okay, freeze 1 second. I want you just to do something for me. Very easy, okay?
Okay.
Now, I don't want you to be anybody other than who you are.
Sure.
But I do want to change one aspect of you.
Okay.
I want you to be 95 years old.
Okay.
And because you're 95, I want you to have a cane in your right hand for me, okay? And because you're 95, your back is not what it used to be, and so you're bent over a little bit and relying on your cane.
Okay.
And think about this, when you're bent over, you're going to have to lift your head just a little bit in order to
Can I
make
borrow
the
my car keys?
that'd be good. But your voice is also going to be 95. So let me hear your 95-year-old voice sounding. What is it sounding like? What is yours?
Well, it's something like this.
Okay. Now bend over a little bit more, get that cane going. And from your 95-year-old voice, continue to tell this story, please. Eye contact. Work it. Come on.
I'm walking around the lobby and I see this beautiful, beautiful Asian or Chinese peat vase. And the vase has beautiful intricacies in it, all sorts of colors. I can see the detail that the artist put into it. And I think that the person that placed it there must have been...
Eye contact. Come on. Stay with their eyes.
The person that put it there must have really wanted to brighten up and add some sophistication and more cosmopolitan, maybe more worldly pieces of art amongst this drab, stoic paintings.
Okay, let's freeze. And relax. Let's talk a little bit about this exercise, why I might want to aid you just a little bit.
Okay.
What is it makes people in general a bit more interesting? It forces you to lean in, and what it really does is it takes you out of this I'm a lawyer mode with your shoulders back, and it lets you communicate with people. It works better with some people than other people.
It's my yoga,
Okay.
trying to keep my heart
Could be.
open.
It could be. Be serious. You're not thinking about what this is actually doing for you and why it makes you a different person in the way you communicate. Talk to him a little bit about, was there much difference for you or not? And before we go any further, we need to have a rule in this group is that there is no sugarcoating anything.
Yeah.
This guy is not going to get any better, and you're not going to get any better if we're just blowing smoke up each other's butts. We've got to tell him openly and honestly what's working and what's not working, and he will do the same for you, I trust. Is that fair?
Can we have a freeze
Yeah.
frame? You know, that's a common problem, the sort of throwaway remark you made about the yoga and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I understand why people do it in a training setting because, you know, they're trying to deflect and they're, but, and, you know, with
Well, it's
complete...
not a throwaway, I mean,
I mean, with complete love, I tell you that it's just such a bullshit move for a student to make, and then you as the trainer have got to figure out a way to get them back in the game, you know, because essentially what he's doing is he's drawing a wall.
He's drawing a
With
wall,
that little
yeah.
throwaway remark. So you said, be serious, stay with me?
Come on, be serious, stay with me. There's a method to my madness, maybe what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're here to learn, come on, walk with me. There's a good point here, I need you to stay with me, okay? And I may not do that the first time he does it, but if he starts to do it a second time or a third time, I'm going to step in. But I'm not going to do it in such a way that I'm going to call him down on the rug in front of everybody else and make him feel like shit, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to make it a group exercise. Come on, stick with me, stick with me. They're learning from what you're doing. You're going to learn from what we're doing.
Got
And
it.
we're going to move forward, okay? Come on, stay with me.
Okay, another process question that I had. This no sugarcoating rule,
Mhm.
I think that, I wonder why you chose to articulate that rule at this point in time. Because if I'm Seth,
Mhm.
I, in the back of my neurotic mind, think, I have really fucked up, and Lindsay is like, you know, let her have it.
Getting ready to let it happen.
Yeah, and
I
so
think that's a
why,
good
for
point.
me specifically, is it no sugarcoating? Why didn't you do that as a general ground rule, so it didn't
I
feel
probably
tacky?
should have. I probably
Oh,
should
okay,
have.
I didn't know if there was
You
a
know,
choice.
But if I chose
Yeah.
to
Did
do
you
it,
get that too?
if I
Yeah, it
chose
came-
to do it at this point, I would also do it for other people when they were up there, so it would just become.
You'd say, okay, no
common.
sugarcoating.
I think I should have done it earlier. I think you're right. It just occurred to me at that moment, as he's moving forward, that, you know, I want to make sure that people are giving honest feedback. And it
Okay.
was a bad choice on my part,
Or maybe,
potentially.
maybe it was because I tried to give her an answer, and then you said, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
might just suck, we're not sure.
What?
You might just suck.
Maybe so.
Okay, but with that in mind, talk to him a little bit about whether it changed the dynamic when he was older and leaning in and had a different voice.
I think it did some, but not, it wasn't a real profound difference.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little tiny incremental bit,
Okay.
but it,
And you know, like I said, this exercise, depending on who you're working with, will help you a little bit or a lot or not at all. And so the trick then for me is, if I'm not getting as much from him using this method as I can, is to find some other tool on my tool belt that's going to fix the problem. Right? There's other things I can have him do. I can actually have him be somebody else. I can say, you know, can you pretend like you're Winston Churchill, pretend like you're Abraham Lincoln, pretend like you're anybody other than who you are.
How would you take, because I saw you do this last year, and the guy was a remarkable change as a 95-year-old. And I'm sort of in agreement here. I saw a partial change, and you kept making eye contact with me, and so I thought I was going to have to speak first, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to say it was an improvement because it slowed down and connected more, or it wasn't because I was expecting a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you, would you move him then to something from the sharing earlier about either his best friend mentor or his father?
I think
95
any of those
something
things
like
are fair
that.
game. If you were the one who was instructing, giving the way you teach, what would you take off of your tool belt and use at this point?
I think maybe I would try to get him back to this place of the psychodrama exercise earlier, where his father was maybe talking to his mentor about how much he appreciates helping Seth out, and then maybe try to bring that scene in here and have him connect through that character or that part of himself.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think you could try that. I think before I get away from that and we go around and talk about it, I'm going to find out what that little thing is he did just a little bit better. What was it you felt better about, even if it was just
He
this
slowed
much?
down, he leaned in, and he seemed more authentic.
Okay. Slowed down, leaned in. Okay, we found two things that are helpful. Other things? Thoughts?
Well, we want the 95-year-old, and I think the stability of the cane is to let him be with us a little bit longer in each trajectory of communication. So, could we try an adjustment, or you?
Sure, yeah, I think so.
And this thing about Churchill and all, what I'm hearing is that we will arbitrarily change the speech to relieve you of some of the rushing of your own personality. So could you just remove your sunglasses so you're not heading off to the court? And would you just continue as with what you were talking about?
Okay.
And would you take it into the deep, deep South, where every vowel becomes a diphthong?
So no 95-year-old anymore?
No, for right now, everything. It's just, you're just going way. It's 110 degrees and you care. Let's go.
But I'm the same actor.
Yeah, you're just
Okay,
you.
okay, all right.
You're just you, but you grew up instead of in New Orleans, which has port sounds, in Gadsden, Alabama. Don't think.
I walked into this beautiful law school building, and all of a sudden I saw all of this artwork on the wall, and I said, most of this artwork looks like a bunch of old men, all these old white men,
Old white man. Keep going, you're doing great.
old white men, and then there, in the corner, I saw this beautiful face.
Now drop only the dialect, but nothing else. Give him that last bit of this beautiful
I
piece.
saw this beautiful piece.
Now wait a minute, when you just did it with,
I went
go
faster.
southern with him.
I saw this beautiful piece of Chinese art.
So what's happening is you're being there long enough, the little changes are happening in your brow and your head. So as long with him as if you were southern. You tell him you saw this beautiful go.
In regular?
Well, not regular, as long as if you were doing southern.
Okay. Saw this beautiful vase with intricate gold artwork and painting on it, and I was fascinated by that.
Okay, and I think that's what you're looking for, where you stay long enough with somebody,
Right.
the tiny little changes can happen.
But ask him, I mean, the change is amazing.
Yep.
At this point.
Well, and you were
It's-
closer, Seth, and then you were doing, this is a nice thing to do with your hands,
Yes.
because you're holding us,
Okay.
you know, and sort of honoring us and including all of us. And it just felt so much more like showing us who you are.
Right. The first part was kind of, I was a jackass, you got an attorney telling you how.
Well, you were like 3
Good
steps
job.
back, and your posture was different, and
Right.
you were just,
It has this feeling of
I couldn't get
sort
any
of
traction.
a holier than now. You're up above, you're back away, there's no real connection.
That's
right there. Okay? And this changed that whole dynamic for you. Okay? I'm going to move forward just a little bit. Good work for this guy. Let me bring you back up, and I would be taking another person at this point. But if we go back and we think a little bit about the story about the locking mechanism and the handle that you were sharing with us and the person who made that. What I want you to do now is, I want you to tell us that story again. This time, though, I don't want it to come from the voice of the narrator or the lawyer. I want it to come from the voice of the man who actually made this thing. Okay? I want it to come from the first person. So talk to us from his voice or her voice. All right? I. You follow? Give it a shot. Eye contact, body language, first person. I. Use his voice.
My palms were sweaty, and I grabbed the doorknob, and the knob just spun in my palm. And it occurred to me that there was a better way to do this. So I went back home and I started drawing ideas for how do you get the door open without a knob? And I drew the door and I drew the door jamb and figured out how it had to work to close and what it would take to open it. And really what you do with the doorknob is pull.
Okay, now Freeze, for the sake of time, I would have let you go a bit longer, but
Okay.
talk to him about how story's coming from him now, a little bit. What are you feeling now as far as engagingness and so forth?
I wish there was more time because I think he was about to really get into it.
Yeah.
And he's getting the warm-up stuff, which I think is an
Right.
interesting point, because if
Right.
you cut stuff off too soon, if you're forced to, you cut yourself short on time, and it ruins a lot of the
And
change.
it doesn't
magic.
develop as much as it could, right?
In terms of training, what you've just done here is something I strive for and fail at consistently, which is you brought Peter up, you taught him something, helped him get somewhere, and he succeeded. You let him sit down, you didn't get greedy and, oh, what else can I offer to them through him? You went through 2 or 3 other people building on those, and now we're bringing him back and adding something new from the
Exactly.
level of success.
It does
That's
this.
huge to
Boom,
me.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And so each person builds off of the next, and everybody learns from the exercise, and everybody sees that from first person now, it's a very interesting way to tell story. We haven't yet gotten to our cases, but we're learning a lot about what makes good story good, and how you as the teller can change the dynamics of how the story is told by using your voice, by using your eyes, by using your body, right? And those sorts of
Wow.
things. So I will have gone through and done some first person with people on their cases, and then I may bring Seth back up and say, Seth, come on up, and we'll thank you again, and Seth, come on up. Now, Seth, you told us this story about the urn that you saw downstairs and the person who made the urn. What I want you to do for us now is I want you to pretend, if you would, that you are the neighbor of the man or the person who made that urn. And you sat on your porch for years and watched this person grow up and they throw pots in the backyard or whatever the story may be. But tell us a little bit about the person that made this pot from the next door neighbor's perspective that saw him grow up. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And if you want to, you certainly can sit down if you would like to. Not that you have to, but, right? Maybe pretend like you're on the rocking chair on the front porch. How about that? Let's see what happens.
Now, I'm rethinking on my body posture stuff. So, for years, I sat in a small village in China and watched my neighbor's son grow up. And he was a really creative child. He was always into various types of crafts. And then he would bring me these beautiful pieces of pottery. And I would watch him improve his pottery and make the pottery even better and more beautiful. And over the years, he became quite known in our village for making some of the most beautiful pieces of work in the entire area. And it was amazing to see how he transitioned from this young man with an artistic flair to someone that really became so prolific in the community. We're all so proud of him for that, developing, making these beautiful pieces of artwork.
Okay, freeze. Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing here now. Help him out. What is he doing here that's working for you? And what is he doing here that maybe we can crank up a notch? What are you thinking?
I really like how quiet he's become,
Yes.
because Seth is not naturally a real quiet kind of guy.
Yeah.
And silence, or the turning the volume down really draws us in. I'm really tired. And I even find myself rocking up a little bit to meet you.
And leaning into you, yes. An important point to remember is the teller of story or as the speaker to anyone, is the most powerful moment that you give them. Also be the softest one. Right? It's like a 5-speed car. You have all of these different speeds in voice: fast, slow, loud, soft. And for any of them to make any difference, you need to use more of them. So soft, we're learning about it, how cool that is. Other thoughts?
Yeah, but the leaning in helps a lot.
Ah, yes, yes. He's leaning in. It helps you, makes you want to listen. Yeah.
But what I kept tripping up against is the disconnect between the words you're using and the person whose story you're trying to tell. You know, this is a very old man in a village in China. Would he ever say he was interested in all kinds of crafts? He became very prolific.
In
you
the
know,
community.
in the community, and it's like, you
It
probably
breaks the
don't
moment,
even
doesn't
have
it?
all your teeth. You know what I mean? And so it was just hard for me to do that. And you know, I think that for me at least, because I'm a word person and an auditory person, my associations with people I meet, and especially my friends, are phrases that they say that I associate with them. And that's sort of in my head when I think Steve Lindsay. You know, I think of like a phrase that maybe you said at dinner last night, in your voice and in your words. And I think that if you can try to maybe inhabit this character in terms of his vocabulary, not just his physical vocabulary or his volume vocabulary, but the actual words he would pick, it would make it even more powerful.
And I think to get him to go there, one of the things I might do is, rather than have him tell his story, I'm going to have him take a moment and see and feel who that character is, that person, and see him in their mind. And then I may spend a few minutes interviewing him. You know, tell me about your family. Tell me about you. Where are you sitting? And try to get him oriented into the body and the mind and the soul of the person he's actually being right now.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can
So I
be
guess
pretty
I didn't
tough.
know, like I started and I was like, am I that guy in China, or am I, you know, I wasn't
Right,
sure.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I think your point was valid, especially, and we've talked about that, talking to the people and not sounding like a lawyer.
Right.
When you start using, prolific, and it
Right.
might have been a little verbose. I think.
Right. Now, what I'm doing here, though, is I'm moving you in a direction of understanding that first person doesn't have to be from the voice of the primary character in your story. It can be a secondary character who becomes primary because they're telling the story. But they're really not where the focus is. The focus is on the person who made the thing. And where we'll go from here is, and whoops, let me borrow you one more time because we've got about 3 minutes and I want to try something with you. And if you'll just pop down right here. And now what I want you to do is, if you'll remember the story he gave us about the urn and the man that made the urn, I want you to tell us the story of the man that made you, because I want you to use the voice of the urn. Tell us about you and about him, okay? Do you understand what I'm asking you to do?
Okay. I am the urn.
You are the urn, and you're going to tell us the
Easy.
story of the maker. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take just a few seconds, take as much time as you need to, breathe, think to yourself, get into the space of being the urn, okay? And give it a shot.
I am an urn in a corner in Macon, Georgia. I came here from China. I was created by a man in a small village in the northern province of China. I'm ceramic. Inspired and nothing. The man who made me hated me. He fired me. Go away. So it became part of me.
Come on, stop it. This is just so damn good. I'm sorry.
That's like a goosebump
It
thing.
really
Wow,
is.
Peter.
Phenomenally good. I mean, talk to him, guys.
But great.
Can you feel how it changes your flexibility as the teller of the story? how you can give us a much richer and fuller perspective of the story, tell it in a wonderfully neat way where people are going just, I want to know why she's on that 80-foot ladder. You know, I mean, that's, I don't know, you're over here. We all are trying to think both as student and instructor, but from your perspective, what are you seeing on the end? Seth, yeah, what do you hear from this? Is it working for you? Is it not?
Absolutely. I was hanging on to every word he was saying. And in fact, at one point, I was making a constructive criticism. My buddy's voice got so low, I couldn't hear him. But then, I forgot this is in public speaking, and I had to really zone in on what he was saying, and it made it even more, I became more focused on it.
Cool. And what I'd probably do after I do an exercise on inanimate object first person is we probably do one exercise on first person present tense to feel the difference about telling the story as you're there, because I'm going to give them a mechanism when we do direct examination for drawing your witness out when they're not actually being as flavorful as possible, where I'll force that witness into first person present tense. Like with Yvonne Kitchens, I may say, all right, you're in the kitchen, tell us what you see. Come on, Yvonne, what do you see? Tell the jury. And I'm going to get her to go through it step by step in first person present tense. Tell us what you're feeling. What can you hear? Walk through this. And I can speed her up, I can slow her down. But the language that she'll start to use and the way the jury will listen to her is going to be incredibly different when I get to that point on direct exam.
I have just a teaching curiosity question for you, Peter. What about this whole setup, and I know we've spent a couple of hours together, made you willing to do what you just did? Because, you know, I think that the natural reaction is, oh, that's silly and that's all crazy and blah, blah, blah. But you approached it with such, you know, an open heart and so much buy-in, and I'm just wondering what was happening in here that made you willing to do that?
Well, I think it's a matter of trust and, you know, feeling safe with the people you're with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it takes me a long time. I'm very willing to get there,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to get there with a strange group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not something I can turn on to walk into a room.
But you did.
And
You
make
did it.
Can I help you on that, Peter?
Sure.
We've seen each other a few times this week, never spoken. Spoke on the elevator ride on the way up. And then we were intimate in the murder deal, or the sex genre, one word at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't look anywhere else, and we were just there. And there was no resistance after that from Peter at all. So
Okay.
that was all gone, and he was
Actually,
ready
we
to do
started
whatever.
in your car at 7:30 this morning.
And I think what happens is it's the way you structure this morning, because in 2 hours, through the exercises and the way I've got these things set up, it gets people beyond that nervousness of who they're with. And it's also what you bring as the trainer to make that happen and make him feel comfortable. Everybody's doing the same thing. We're all building a little bit at a time. And it just, I've never had a problem with resistance when I've followed this sort of a course with a group as we've moved forward together. Warren, go ahead.
As a freeze frame, let me ask you this. It seemed to me that there was some confusion about the story and about whether this is the story of the object, like why is it based here, or the story of the maker of the object, which may or may not have anything to do with the object itself. And, you know, I'm a lawyer, so I'm really trying to pay attention to the little friggin' instructions. And it seemed like the instructions were inconsistent a couple of times, and which led, when Ann did her beautiful story, Seth was a little confused because I think he was expecting a story of the object and not of the person. And was that intentional, or was
I
that
think
just sort of whatever?
I think it was sort of whatever at that point. It was, and I'm really more interested at this point in having them
Moving
learn
the stories
about story and how you can tell it more convincingly. From here, I would probably let them break for lunch. We would come back after lunch or before lunch we might do. I wouldn't let them go directly to their own case at this point. Where I have them go at this point is I have them do an opening in somebody else's case. So the Baker people might do kitchens and so forth, because it takes, what's happening is they're telling a story in sort of free form without any great pressure. There's a permission there for them to fuck up, because in this example, they're just making the shit up. When they're doing somebody else's case, there's permission to fuck up because it's somebody else's case, and they're not as factually intensive which we don't want in our opening. And then the last thing we get to is they do the opening in their own cases. And a lot of them will do markedly better on their openings after you go through this process, and there's a few of them that won't do nearly as well. And you've got to then rope them in and bring them up to speed. But that gives you sort of that first day of getting through opening statement or whatever it may be. But the first day we're learning all about telling story, and we're getting to know each other, and we're all progressing in how we communicate, and it makes for a wonderful first day. That makes sense.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Nice
Thanks.
job, this was
Yeah.
really helpful.
Good, 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 good. So, I don't know, it seems to work. And
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
My recollection is we got about 12 minutes, and then we're going to go hear a lecture on